Hi, I'm Ron Arrigo, President of HRLF and Head of Human Resources for AAA Northeast. I've seen firsthand the emotional impact of COVID-19 and more recently, cries for social justice. It has made it even more clear to me how important emotions are. Emotions matter in all the decisions we make as humans. Factoring our employees' emotional response into the people decisions we make is the right thing to do, and it's good business too. We may think of emotions as a sign of weakness or as a soft art, not science. But neuroscience research over the last 2 decades tells us something very different. Neuroscience has conclusively demonstrated the importance of emotions in enabling us to make decisions. Without emotion, we can't make the choice. We can't escape analysis paralysis. You may have read some of this work. If you haven't already, I suggest grabbing Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow. It describes the work that won him the Nobel Prize and sheds great light on how emotions drive decision making. When I saw the study by Leading Indicator Systems, I was immediately intrigued by the title, Emotional Toll. Indeed, some statistics jumped off the page. Fully 40% of the workforce is worried about societal breakdown, tied to two dominant emotional fears, injustice and insecurity. How prescient in this moment. And 1 in 3 are worried about meeting basic needs for care. The findings are disturbing, but the implications for how we guide people decisions are equally encouraging. I'll hand it over to Leading Indicator Systems now. I encourage you to take a closer look at the study and ask how you can better factor employees' emotional response into your people decisions.
Thank you, Ron. Before we dive into the results further, let's take a moment to overview the study. Leading Indicator Systems, or LIS, sampled U.S. workers employed but forced to work from home because of COVID-19. LIS used a traditional survey approach to assess cognitive response combined with the LIS Agile Brain tool to capture the emotional response. This is how, for example, we can tie workers' fears about a breakdown in society to underlying emotional needs for security and justice. In all, 403 respondents met the study criteria, yielding a statistically representative sample in terms of gender, household composition, industry, and company size. As Ron said, the results are alarming and, sadly, not altogether surprising. We asked study participants how they were coping, and the answer was not very well. 70% find it challenging to work from home. However, when we asked if they had the tools and resources to do their job, 70% said yes. So, what is it that accounts for the struggle? Clearly, some employers' responses have fallen short. Encouragingly, only 1 in 4 employees said their companies had not shown concern. If workers have the tools and their employers show concern, what accounts for the challenge? The challenge lies squarely in the emotional domain. 40% of respondents were very or extremely concerned for their own mental health. That's astounding, given the traditional reticence to talk about issues of mental health at all, let alone one's own mental health. 1 in 6 are worried about their own risk of addiction to cope with stress. 1 in 8 live in an emotionally unsupportive home with fewer options in this current situation. 1 in 10 don't have any support network at all. One of our clients related a story that crystallized the emotional toll for me. When they set up their employees to work from home, they discovered some were homeless. These are Americans working full time in well paying jobs without a home. These are troubling results, but they don't shed much light on the underlying emotions or inform our decisions. When we incorporated the emotional measurement, we got much better insight. Remembering back to your statistics class, you may know that R squared is an indication of how well something explains an outcome. In this data set, the outcome is likelihood to struggle working from home. When we just looked at a standard survey results, we explained 13% of the outcome. When we looked at the emotional measurement alone, we explained 23%. And when we combined the results, we were able to predict the outcome almost 3 times better than a traditional survey approach. Think about this in 2 ways. First, emotions really do matter. And second, emotional measurement can multiply your chances of making the right people decisions. Let's dig into the why and so what. Why emotional measurement gets you better insights is simple. Traditional surveys are fundamentally cognitive, rational efforts. You are presented with a scale, for example, strongly agree to strongly disagree, and asked to think and reply. These answers are important, but they only scratch the surface. They can't measure the feeling that you aren't conscious of, don't know how to express, or maybe aren't willing to share. To dive into the emotional realm, you need to trick the brain not to think. We do that by exposing images for a very short time, long enough to recognize, but not long enough to rationalize. And you need a framework for mapping emotions. We do that by using carefully selected images that are validated to represent specific emotional areas. That emotional realm is divided into 4 domains: self, work, social, and spiritual. The spiritual domain is not necessarily religion for all people, but formally or otherwise, people are motivated by concerns for justice, ethics, and a higher purpose. And within each of the 4 realms, there is a hierarchy from foundational to aspirational emotional needs. For example, in the realm of self, people have a foundational need for personal safety. We see that in a big way right now. That feeling of safety allows them to be their authentic selves. We see this in the increasing and inspiring stories of coming out. If we trust in our safety, we can be our true selves and ultimately reach our full potential with mastery in our self realm. This progression plays out from foundation to aspiration across the other realms. Based on the images selected and the speed of selection, we can measure the power of the corresponding emotional needs area. This is like an MRI for emotions without the trip to the hospital or the awkward blue gown. Dark blue reflects high explanatory power for any issue that is being evaluated. The lightest blue reflects little explanatory power for that issue. Look what happened in just a few weeks earlier this year. The emotional map on the left shows pre-COVID-19 results: record low unemployment, record high stock market, record long growth. We were on a work high that spilled over into the social realm by way of recognition with themes like look at me and look at what I've achieved. Now let's look at the emotional needs map after COVID-19 hit. The slide on the right shows study results after COVID-19 hit. The emotional needs around work and recognition dried up, and people recentered their emotional needs on self and spiritual. Safety and caring are the 2 dominant emotional need areas, but people also questioned what was the bigger picture, the higher purpose in their lives, and how could they fulfill their own personal potential. One company we talked with was planning a major recognition program to celebrate individual workers during the COVID-19 crisis. The emotional data suggests that would be an expensive, ineffective, and possibly detrimental effort. People are not craving recognition in this moment. Redirecting efforts towards those higher emotional needs areas or leaving the money in the bank would be more effective. We were interested to see the linkage between employees' emotional state and some important business outcomes that human capital specialists care about. We asked employees whether they felt that their bond with their employer would strengthen or weaken because of the COVID-19 crisis. These results show the emotional map linked to that business issue, namely employee engagement. Normally, we would expect to see the work realm lit up here like we did pre-COVID-19. Instead, the dominant driver was caring. Employees wanted to feel cared for, to feel loved and belonging in this moment of crisis. All the efforts so many companies made, along with caring for their employees, was inspiring and on target. Here's how concrete company actions like effective communications and attention to safety details triggered employee emotional responses that in turn drove that strengthening employee employer bond for higher engagement. The right side of the slide identifies a set of optimal corporate actions, that is, ones that correlated highest with strengthening bond in our study. These actions produced a key set of emotional responses from employees, which aligned with their need for care and connection and fair treatment. These drove a stronger sense of bond or relationship with their employer for employees experiencing those actions. And this type of cause and effect, predictive relationship, holds true across all the data we see. We also looked at the gaps between employee emotional needs and employer response. This emotional needs map on the left shows that employers were on target with many of their responses, including the dominant emotional need around feeling safe and feeling cared for. The emotional needs map on the right tells a slightly different story. These are employees expressing the emotional needs areas that they felt the most unmet need. Areas like achieving personal fulfillment, establishing a sense of autonomy, and seeking a higher purpose in their life. Sense of autonomy is a good example to unpack. Humans desire a sense of control over their environment, and in the current crisis, many people have lost that sense of control. Managers who find ways to give their employees instances of unexpected control over their environment can have a significant and positive impact. For example, giving employees control over their daily schedule allows them to best manage their competing challenges like child or elder care. The good news is that many companies and HR teams have hit the bullseye on foundational emotional needs. The challenge, as always, is what's next. This is perhaps the silver lining in the COVID-19 crisis. Many people are reconnecting and recentering their lives in important ways. One of our clients launched an initiative to develop new personal and professional skills during the slowdown that affected their business. They are already seeing signs of renewed energy and commitment, which will serve them well in the coming rebound. PPP became a thing because of the crisis, but we'd like to suggest an entirely different meaning for PPP. What's your personal potential plan? I hope you've enjoyed this report and take away with you a heightened appreciation for the power of emotional measurement in making better people decisions. There is much more to it, of course, so please feel free to download the report on our website at the URL shown here or visit our site to learn more about LIS Agile Brain and emotional measurement. Stay safe and thank you for giving Leading Indicator Systems your attention for a few minutes of your valuable time.